Welcome to the Old Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
How's it going tonight, Dan? We're taking a little trip back to Halloween Fest, perhaps?
No, we're out of Halloween Fest, but yeah, this film would certainly fit in that special time of year. And I'll tell you, the weather that we're getting here in the cold southeast is you'd think that we were
I
up
have
north
no
somewhere.
sympathy. No
Listen,
sympathy.
if you find a better film up to this point of the year and after that's better than Frankenstein by Guillermo del Toro, I want to know what that film is.
Was that a surprise for you?
That it was as good as it was?
Yeah.
No, no. But you know what? It's interesting. What is a surprise is I always have I always have to go back and remember the resume of this guy, the legacy of this guy, right?
Yeah.
It's like I forget things that would maybe be considered Guillermo del Toro adjacent, even though they're his, like Pacific Rim, for example, which you and I, one of the few films we saw together in the theater,
Yeah. I
that
think
doesn't
we saw that
register.
on big, like,
We
IMAX.
did see it in IMAX, yeah, up there in your neck of the woods. The fact that he's behind the screenplays for the Hobbit franchise and just all these things. Now, we did an episode on Nightmare Alley, Mike, if you remember, about 3 years ago.
And
Mike's
I
got
have the new iteration that just came out because why?
mm,
It's that time of year where you've heard us talk about Criterion Edition discs. They're on sale, 50% off.
and I've delved head deep.
Both of us are a little light in the wallet tonight.
Yeah, I've got, like 6, I think, total coming in inbound, but,
And it's
um
also ironic. We're doing Frankenstein, but
mhm,
Guillermo's last film was Pinocchio. And if you
mhm.
think about that, it's kind of the both sides of the same coin.
Well, that's coming straight out of Guillermo's mouth. Don't try to play off like that's your own sentiment
Oh, I
or
thought
your
it
own,
was. Did
no,
he say
he's
that in the there's a 45-minute making of
mhm.
that's a must watch.
Yeah, well, so let's say this just came out on Netflix November 7th, 2025, again, as of this recording, which is just a couple days after its release. Now, I don't do you have information on the theatrical release here? Because it was released in theaters. In
It
fact, I
was
think it's
released,
still playing in some theaters.
yeah, but really limited. I didn't even look up the box office. I know the budget was 120 million, but I don't know. It was released in selective. It's in IMAX if you get a chance, see it in IMAX,
Mhm.
but it's not showing around here anywhere.
Yeah, well, and that's where we saw it was on Netflix. So, this is a perfect example of a film that I would like to see on the big screen. This deserves to be seen in the
Es
theater.
especially when you see how it was made
Mhm.
and what went into the production.
Yeah, and it's funny because you bring up the Criterion collection, which, the big selling point of that is all for especially for physical media collectors, is all the supplements that come along with those collections. And as you mentioned, for Frankenstein, there was a great 45-minute behind the scenes featurette called The Anatomy of, or no, The Anatomy Lesson is the name of it.
And these extras enhance what you've just seen
Hmm.
on the screen. Like there were so many things in the extras. I was like, wow, that it blew me away. And they built the entire thing because at one point the monster actually pushes the ship.
Right. And,
And
and,
that's
well, this is where you have to talk about Guillermo's, past. Well, like, or just where he is now, right? He's a big proponent of practical effects. I mean, to take it to this extreme, something you easily could have done digitally, right?
right.
But he understood the way that would play on screen, and I think probably the realism for the cast, right, as they're performing these sequences, the fact that they would construct this ship in a parking lot somewhere in Canada. It's insane. And again, this is all spotlighted on the anatomy lesson featurette that we talked about already. It's incredible.
And going back, this is based on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which I forgot until the end of the film has a subtitle to it. It's, Frankenstein and what's the addendum? Oh, the modern Prometheus.
Hmm.
It's been over 30 years since I read the book, so it's not like it's fresh in my head or I remember details, but he did hit on a couple of things that have not been in any other Frankenstein. And when I think of Frankenstein, I think of like the
Bor-
James Whale one, which is kind of a, you know,
Boris
joke
Karloff.
almost. Yeah, with Boris Karloff. And then De Niro did it with Kenneth Branagh. And they took a more, serious approach. But this is it's so much closer to the novel, yet still his own work.
We'll talk about one thing that isn't close to the novel and what he does with Elizabeth, the character of Elizabeth.
Yeah, now he has a now in the novel, he has two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother, William.
Hmm.
And they don't mention the older brother in this iteration, but they talk about, well, William is in the film. Now,
Hmm.
in the novel, he dies at the hands of the monster when he's 5 years old. In Del Toro's retelling, he decides to maturate, William, and he's engaged to Elizabeth, who he introduces to Victor, played by Oscar Isaac. And you can tell there's an instant like connection. But in the novel, Christine is actually his stepsister that he does indeed marry. So this one, as the story goes through, there's no relationship between him and Christine. In fact, there's no jumping off point to make Bride of Frankenstein, which ironically we did a first look on. I don't even remember the title.
The Bride.
The Bride, which is going
Hmm.
to be a takeoff. And I would hate to be the one putting that film out after this came out.
I know exactly. I was thinking about that too. And with the way that the monster is portrayed in this by Jacob Elordi, who we'll get to, it reminded me a lot of what we've seen, the little bit we've seen of Christian Bale, who is portraying the same character in the movie The Bride next year.
Right.
But I had the same thought. I said, "Oof, I would not want to be bringing that next." There's no way. I'm telling you right now, Mike. This is a perfect film from top to bottom. It absolutely is. We say that very rarely on the podcast. This is one of those films I would say is a perfect movie.
And it's very long. So, but it's
It
an
is.
epic. It's
It
an
is.
epic.
It is. And it's 2 hours and 29 minutes, which I, often, groan at when I see that. But the way that he does it, by setting up the prelude, and then essentially what you have after that is a telling of the story from both Victor's perspective and then the monster's perspective, which I thought was
Right. And
brilliant.
unlike Weapons, which we just saw where they do the film
Mhm.
from different perspectives, they
Mhm.
rewind. What Del Toro does is moves it forward. First, you get the
Mhm.
backstory from Victor,
Right.
and then you get the next telling of the story from the monster.
Mhm.
And originally he was going to do another retelling with the captain, which that whole thing is so uniquely shot. It reminded me of what's the Christmas movie with Tom Hanks?
Oh,
He's
yeah,
like
the Polar Express.
Polar Express. It
Mhm.
almost looked like that, like it was fake because of the colors and whatnot.
Well, what's about that point is in the first opening sequence of the film, you're right, they were in the Arctic, right? And I believe that's how the novel begins and ends. It's like
It
a
does.
bookend. It's like a bookend, right? The
Correct.
captain's log. But the sequence you're talking about when you see the ship and the crew and the captain and all that, it looked very CGI. And I said, "Oh
Yeah.
boy, is this gonna be," but again, with Del Toro, it is a lot of sort of these fantastical scenes and sequences and sets, even though he is, as we said, using a lot of practical effects as well. But when you watch the anatomy lesson making of, I think you appreciate what you just talked about, the colors. There's a reason behind every single thing that you're seeing on screen. And I'm not sure, Mike, there's anybody better doing this today than him.
No, and we just talked about the Criterion Collection. He has 7 films out on
Hmm.
Criterion, and they're all like, I just got Nightmare Alley, and I
Hmm.
told you I had already bought it on 4K, so I'm
Right.
not gonna get it. But
Right.
I take a look at what it's offering. There's a director's cut that's longer. Normally,
Hmm.
that would turn me off, but the way he tells a story, every detail, he's kinda like a novelist. I mean, when
Hmm.
you read a Stephen King book, it's almost exhausting because he puts in so many details. That's why I think he rarely likes the finished product, because they have to take his novel and squeeze it to 2 hours. But
I wanna show this. Here's a shot of the ship in the one of the sequences in the film.
yeah, great
It's
shot.
breathtaking, yeah, and there's too many great sequences in this film, too many great shots. There's the acting is spectacular. I mean, I was not, prior to this, Mike, very familiar with Jacob Elordi. I know that he's been in some big things like Euphoria and some other things, so, he's not like he's a slouch, but I wasn't as familiar with his work. But
N
man, and he's a
nor
young
was
kid.
I.
He's a
Yeah,
young kid. He's 27 years old. He's a big kid too. He's
big.
perfect, 6'5".
Yep.
You couldn't get a guy with a better physique and a more handsome fellow. I mean, this guy's got it all going on, and I
Which
love this show.
ironically, he's
uh
playing the monster. And like you
Right,
said, this is a
but
good-looking dude, and he
well,
makes a
but
pretty good-looking monster.
but that's intentional. That's intentional, as Del Toro talks about. They wanted there to be this kind of sweetness and maybe vulnerability or attraction, quite frankly. I mean, you see some of the sequences between he and Elizabeth, there's a connection being made there. And I think if it's just this gruesome figure or the square head with the bolts, it's not going to play the same way. So I think Del Toro uses that in
I'll
some
tell
ways in the
you,
film.
the beginning is so engaging.
Hmm.
Like, when I looked and I saw 2.5 hours, I was almost like, "Oh." But Oscar Isaac really leaps into it in the beginning, along with
Hmm.
the sequence he's being, chased by the monster, sort of. That's kind of a bad way of putting it, but it was such an engaging setup that he had me locked in
Yeah.
from the start. And, I didn't get up and get a drink or whatever, I was engaged the entire time.
Yeah, I was riveted. Yeah, I was the same as I said earlier with the runtime, but in this film, it's necessary in the given the story that he's telling here and the way that he's telling it visually. Um, but yeah, the runtime wasn't a problem for me in this one at all.
And most of his are long run times.
Hmm.
Pinocchio was a long run time,
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. We did Nightmare Alley. We did an episode on that. We've done. I know we did the Card Counter years ago that starred Oscar Isaac as well. And
Yes.
to talk about him for a minute, talk about a guy who, first of all, he's got a fascinating background. Um, he, I think he's from Guatemala originally, and his dad was Cuban, and he's got an interesting background. Moved around a bit, ended up in Miami at some point, but a guy that could have gone like one particular trajectory, perhaps potentially with his career, but man, has he made some incredible decisions. And, Juilliard, well, no, actually, did he end up going to no, I think he was Juilliard trained, I believe, is his background as well. But, you think with Dune and this film and, The
The
Card
first
Counter
thing
was a great performance too,
yeah, the
actually.
first movie I saw him in was Inside Llewellyn
Lewin
Davis,
yeah, the Cohen brothers, yeah.
and I thought it was a biopic and he was the real guy.
Well,
That's how convincing he
he is a
is.
musician, so
Yes.
he did have that in his background.
Also, he did Ex Machina, and I
Mhm,
bring that up because he's a scientist, a genius who creates a robot that's lifelike.
mhm.
So him and Del Toro both have kind of told a similar story before.
Yeah,
That's fascinating to me.
when you mentioned Pinocchio, and we were starting to make this point earlier and sort of got sidetracked, but he was talking about how The Shape of Water, Pinocchio, and Frankenstein, they basically are all telling a similar story, and he really felt like this was kind of the culmination of that storytelling. And, this is a film, as you learn, that he's been dreaming about making and being involved with since he was a kid. And have you seen the shots of his home? His,
No.
what he calls the living room? He's got an entire room in his home dedicated to Frankenstein. He's got all these lifelike, um, statues and so
Yeah.
forth. And it's really it's
That was
pretty
in the making
incredible.
of, wasn't it?
They may have showed it in there. I saw it in several interviews with him, but it might have been I can't remember exactly,
He's
but
like a true artist, a true
mhm.
what do you call it? A renaissance man. Like
Yes.
he appreciates art, he appreciates music. He talks about the
Mhm.
score of this film a lot.
Right.
Every
What
detail he wants to be in on.
Yeah, in a good way. It seems like, yeah, as you said, he's very, very involved in every aspect of it,
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem to negatively impact the cast and crew. And in fact, they seem to the way they talk about it, it's almost like it actually liberates them in a lot of ways. It's kind of hard to
Well,
explain.
Oscar Isaac talks about how, it's a very dark film. And
Mhm.
he said other films he's done that are dark, they want to keep you in a dark space and kind of keep that mood. Yet every time
Mhm.
they would yell cut on Frankenstein, him and Guillermo would be talking in Spanish, telling jokes.
Yeah. Yeah, he said
Eh,
they spoke in Spanish the entire production.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about the way he portrays the doctor. It's not a lab coat, right? And Del Toro talks about he wants him to be more like a rock star, like Prince or David Bowie or somebody like that.
Mhm.
And you hear him talk about it, and Oscar Isaac captures it just perfectly. And
He
it's more of
does.
a story about a parent
Mhm.
than a monster.
I think I have let me show I have a nice image that, let me zoom out. I mean, this is another thing about Del Toro too, right? Just look at this image from just one sequence in the film where the Victor is, sitting in his castle. This the I mean, Mike, you could pick out the last 4 Del Toro films, and this would look very similar. And when in terms of the color palette that he uses, and I mean, look at the imagery here. And in
Yeah.
fact, talk a little bit about the use of color in the film and how important that is.
You know, well, first of all, I think you have to talk about the lighting when you're talking about the color
Yeah.
because this story is 1800s.
Mhm.
It reminds me of I think I read them almost at the same time, Moby Dick and Frankenstein, and they're
Mhm.
both around 1850, something like that. But he uses real lighting, and there's no lighting in the set. So he builds this huge crane, and they show it in the making of.
It's very cool.
And then they shoot the light in through the window. So it looks like natural lighting, which sets off the color palette in a way you would not get. Like that scene you just showed, the darkness, but the colors are still coming through.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of like bluish, greenish kind of earth color motif.
Now you kinda joked at the beginning about, "Hey, we still in Halloween Fest here at the Oh Brother podcast." Talk a little bit about, any sort of warning for folks who aren't, because this isn't for the faint of heart. There are certainly some sequences that are pretty intense.
Starting when he brings like half a body to life. I mean,
Mhm.
that right off the bat, you're like, wow, it's very realistic. They show kind of the making of the monster, like, ligament by ligament. And
Can I show let
Jacob,
me l let
yeah,
me
go
show you a
ahead. You got a
quick
shot?
shot. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
a quick shot. Uh, uh, Censor alert for anybody who's got a weak stomach, but this is this sequence in the film where he's basically trying to construct the
Yeah.
monster, and I mean, it is you talk about graphic, and it looks so real that
And
it'll make you
e
grimace.
even in the making of, they're walking around with body parts like it's nothing. It looks so real. And
Mhm.
they even use like intestines from animals. And so yeah, there's basically a kind of a slumped over former person that he's going to bring back to life. um and it's Del Toro kind of pointing something out to Oscar about what he wants to do. But yeah, it is graphic at moments, although once he creates the monster, he's quite fetching to look at.
He is
You
quite
don't see
fetching.
like the scars
Yeah.
and whatnot,
Yeah, we're
and
very, very secure here in the Old Brother podcast.
yeah,
We can
and
say that about Jacob.
Jacob does 10 hours in the
Oh,
makeup chair
man.
and then another 10 acting. So you're talking a 20-hour day.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
He's an Australian actor and, just phenomenal in this film. I mean, he really is phenomenal. The you think about what goes into first of all, you've gotta try to not make this some weird mimicking of every other iteration of Frankenstein you've ever seen.
Right.
You gotta find a way to make it your own, something unique, which you get in the look and all of that, the style and so forth. But in his portrayal of it, that whole idea of what is it that Del Toro says in the making of Mike? He talks about or I think I heard Jacob Elordi say this in an interview where he said, just think of your dog,
Mhm.
in terms of when you're trying to figure out how, like, you're just sort of coming to life, right? So you're not going to be having this conversation and be fluent and be able to communicate
And
naturally.
Jacob talks about, a Japanese technique that he used to
Boarding? Was it called like boarding or
yeah,
something?
something like that.
Something like
I've
that. Yeah.
honestly forgotten, but
Hmm.
it's used like in Japan, and he used that. He also said he was inspired by Boris Karloff,
Mm. Oh,
the
I
way
didn't hear
he
that.
walked and moved and,
Mm.
the slowness to it.
But he found his own rhythm. He found his own way
No
into this.
doubt.
This is like nothing I've ever seen before. And talk a little bit about Christoph Waltz, Mike, in the film.
Again, now this is like Liberty because this is a character not in the novel. So this is totally created by Guillermo del Toro, but boy, his acting. I mean, have you ever seen him act poorly?
No, it's a given, and this is someone you're getting to play this part because of the gravitas that he's going to bring to the production, no matter how long he's on screen. And I
Right.
think wasn't it because his character basically helps provide some uh, explanation behind how the castle comes about and the laboratory and everything, which you really don't get in the novel. It's like Mary Shelley just kind of fast forwards to that
Yes.
piece. He doesn't give you all that,
Even
pretext.
even the bringing the body to life,
Mhm.
electrically isn't in the novel. It's
Yeah.
sorta hinted at, but back then, think about it, she wrote this,
She was
like,
19,
she was
like
19,
19.
1801. I think she wrote this. So, um, there was this whole debate about electricity at the time,
Mhm.
so but the way he chose to show it in this, I thought was fascinating,
But
unlike anything.
so his character here, Christoph
Yeah,
Waltz.
I almost took him. He provides the support as
Mhm.
far as financial
And
that's
Elizabeth
needed.
is his niece, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So again, this is painting outside the
Mhm,
box,
mhm,
but to me, he was almost a father figure, like, Kenneth Branagh kinda portrayed, or
mm.
somebody portrayed. There is a father figure in it at the very beginning, but he's not in it very long.
Played by Charles Dance, the great Charles Dance, who some folks would think of from Game of Thrones, I assume, but
And the other actor, I don't know his name. He's such a great character actor that plays the friend, the blind friend, which is in every iteration.
oh, yes, he's fantastic in this film, yes.
He's from Harry Potter. I know he was in all the Harry Potter films.
This is shot of Oscar Isaac, and I don't think we mentioned Mia Goth, who
We
plays
haven't.
Elizabeth? Yeah. I mean, we've talked about her character, but I don't know if we mentioned her. She's also filming the next Star Wars movie, by the way, too,
Oh, I didn't know that.
with
She
Ryan
plays 2
Gosling.
characters in this. She plays
Right,
the mother
right.
as well, so and she looks totally different. Like, I didn't pick that up until I read it or saw it in the making of.
Yeah, that's a great image of her and Oscar and Jacob together at one of the premieres. I gotta again, there's so many amazing sequences in the film. One of the ones where you just go, you remember we were talking about we did on Halloween Fest the Night of the Living Dead Criterion review. And I mentioned that sequence in there where there's a sequence in the film, great sequence, was kind of a throwaway sequence for the film, but it was this sequence with the one of the main characters, Barbara, looking through this music box. You remember we
Right,
talked about that?
right.
Mike, talk about this scene.
Yeah, go ahead and explain it
So
'cause
so this is this
I'm
is a shot of the monster,
yes.
and he is looking at a kind of a negative image of I think himself, like that head, if you will, that part of the body when it was x-rayed or something. So it's kind of like an x-ray image he's looking at, and
Yeah,
he's
this is where he comes across the files, and he's kinda
yes.
going through and he's putting together how he was created, because
Yeah,
that's
and
kind of
correct.
his whole story is about who am I? How did I get here?
And they were kind of in this wreckage and there's snow and he's kind of, wiping away the snow. And as he's kind of clearing the image, he sort of moves it in front of his face and you get this shot where you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Again, if for those listening and not watching, you really have to watch the episode on YouTube and you'll see what we mean here. But just the brilliance and the genius of Del Toro as a
just a
visual
great
storyteller.
shot.
And another example here, you talked about color and lighting. I mean, if this isn't one of the most striking images and uses of color,
Right.
I don't know what to tell you. It's just
And
brilliant.
Del Toro is the type of guy where, okay, red, only certain characters get to
Yes,
use red.
right.
Only certain characters get to use blue, like the Captain Blue is totally unique from any other kind of blue.
Mhm.
I mean, he goes to that minutia of detail. It's just brilliance. If you haven't seen his films, I don't always love them. I'm not a big fan of Shape of Water.
Have you ever seen, like, one of his earliest film, Chronos? Have you ever
I
seen
haven't seen Chronos.
Do you
Have
have it
you?
on Criterion?
I don't.
I have. It's very strange, as most of his films are,
Yeah.
and it's interesting to note that, Hellboy, just Ron Perlman
Yeah,
stars in that film and would go on to be in Hellboy, which is again another Del Toro film, the
right,
original Hellboy. It's very strange, but it also talks about another premise of this artifact that gets lost and hidden inside a statue, and this guy finds it, and it's basically the key to everlasting life, essentially, is the premise. So again, another
right.
similar premise that he plays
Something he's
around with.
fascinated by,
Absolutely.
and it shows up in his work,
Well,
and
that's the thing too, Mike. The themes here, like immortal life and there's a lot going on here with fathers and sons, and obviously the whole idea of playing God and the grief and loneliness and these kinds of things. But as I was watching this too, I'm sitting there going, man, this is so, to me, relevant to today with the conversation we're having about AI and
yeah,
robots.
yeah,
So it's so fascinating how something that a teenager wrote, over 200 years ago is
it's
so
incredible,
topical today. It's timeless,
incredible.
really. But again, I think that's because it deals with a lot of universal themes,
Yeah,
right? I,
yeah,
I again, Mike, to me, if this doesn't clean up at the awards ceremony, I don't know what to tell you. I can't see anything else coming close to this film. I just can't.
and bravo to Netflix for funding this, and, if you're gonna work with Guillermo del Toro, I don't think there's much negotiation.
Mhm.
He's either gonna do it his way or he's gonna tell you to get someone else.
Yeah, he's gonna build a ship, life-size
Yeah,
ship in a parking lot, or you can go kick rocks.
right, or I'm not gonna
Now,
make it.
this is the you mentioned Netflix. The trouble here, right, is that we're not gonna know how, in quote unquote, box office successful the film is. I mean,
No,
they will eventually they'll, release data or information on views and that sort of thing. But the IMDb rating, we talk about Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. IMDb might 78, I think the last time I checked, way, way low.
yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes, 85% from the critics, 95% from the audience, which is where I'm at. That's exactly where I am.
I'm surprised the audience is higher than the critics.
That's incredible to me. But
And
hasn't he kind of gotten a little bit of a bum rap from critics here and there for some, and now granted, I know he's got what, 3 Oscars to his name, I think
correct.
already.
And he's only been nominated 6 times, so he's won half of the
I
time half.
think his films collectively have won 5, I think. But now,
Yeah,
speaking of 5, this is one, Mike, where I could almost see this doing the big 5, where it wins all top 5 categories, with the exception, yeah, Mike pointing to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, another Criterion disc that we've gotta get in our collection.
actually, no, we're getting it tomorrow on 4K for the first time.
But it's Criterion, isn't it?
No, it's not
Oh,
Criterion.
okay, I was mistaken on that one.
Yeah,
But it could, with the exception of Mia Goth, not that she wasn't fantastic in the film, I just don't think she has as much screen time to where it might,
right.
it might be best supporting actress or something.
Although
I
Judi Dench,
true, fair
was
point,
20-minute and she won it. And
fair
same
point.
thing, people
Yeah.
forget, Silence of the Lambs.
Mhm,
Anthony Hopkins was only in that for like 23 minutes.
mhm. Yeah,
You
true.
you think he's in the whole thing, but his presence is.
Yeah. I
So,
I don't know. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better film
I
this year
I
than
think,
Frankenstein.
I wonder, I think Oscar Isaac is gonna go head to head
With Jacob
with
Elordi.
well, no, I think he'll get
Oh, no?
supporting,
Okay.
even though I agree with you, it's more of a leading because his story is just the same. But,
Oh,
Deliver
you
Me
mean
from
with
Nowhere,
Jeremy Allen White.
I think that's gonna be the big competition.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think I'm too close to the other film to agree with you on that. I
Yeah,
I stayed a little too hardcore with the Springsteen fandom to really see that in the same way. But now Frankenstein is a film I will absolutely watch over and over again. And I hope, as has been the case with pretty much all of his films, this will also get a Criterion release at some point in the future.
Yeah, and Netflix isn't big on physical media.
Mhm.
They're down
That's
on it,
true. That's
but
good point.
I have Irishman, that's
Mhm.
Criterion.
Yes.
So I'm hoping, even though this had a good chunk, that 45-minute chunk, and that's the one thing, that's why his films are so good on Criterion or special edition, because
Yeah.
when you see what goes into the making of, you appreciate it just that much more.
Yeah, he is a it's w I do not think I realized it to the degree that I have watching this film. This is a master craftsman, and I just don't think there's anybody else out there doing it to this level right now. I think he is the greatest out there doing it. I'll
And I
I'll
don't
go
know if
head to
you
head with anybody who believes otherwise.
I took a peek at what's coming, and I'm not sure what's next, but it's gonna be epic. I know that.
I think he's doing the Batman sequel, if I'm not mistaken. No, I'm
Yeah, I was like, "What?"
but again, Hellboy, like, you never know. He could,
Right.
you know,
Like I said, he's a renaissance man.
yeah, and he has said, like, he's looking for that next thing outside the box. This guy does not paint with inside the lines whatsoever. But man, please go see this film. It is
Pan's
absolutely
Labyrinth is
fantastic.
another
Yes.
one that's fantastic.
Yes, yes, yes. I need to see Pinocchio. I've not seen that,
And I bought
Pinocchio.
Pinocchio. That was a blind buy for me
Mhm,
because it came out I don't think it got a theatrical release. It only came out on
mhm.
Criterion.
Yeah,
And I thought, "You know what? It's Del Toro, it's Pinocchio,"
gotta do it.
and I was right, you
Yeah.
know?
And you got it's loaded. It's
Yeah.
loaded. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else to say about Frankenstein, Mike? There's more to say than could be said.
Right.
This could be a whole day episode, but the bottom line is go see the film. But is there anything else that stands out that you want to share before we wrap?
No, I just think, if you don't get sucked in right away, that might be a sign it's not for you.
Hmm.
I don't know, but to me, this is like it grabs you by the throat and drags you into it.
Literally, in some cases.
Yeah. So, if you don't have that feeling, maybe this isn't for you. Or if you don't like his other films, although
Hmm.
God, he's all over the map. I mean, Nightmare Alley is totally different.
If you're a cinephile or if you have any interest in anything beyond the story and filmmaking
Yeah.
as a craft, this you've got to see
Remember,
this film.
I talked about how Criterion, they're like classes in filmmaking,
They yes,
and this is that.
it really is. It really is. Something else that folks should do in addition to watching this film, if they haven't already, Mike, is subscribe to the Oh Brother podcast. All you got to do is click on this QR code right here for those watching, and it'll take you right to the channel. You're really almost there. You're watching us, so you're pretty much there. But scan this if you haven't subscribed, and subscribe to the channel, like our videos. If you prefer to consume your podcasts in the audio format, we're on all the podcast players. So make sure that you subscribe and follow us on your favorite podcatcher. Also, leave us a review if you listen to the audio podcast. We'd appreciate that. Just all of that kind of helps get the show out to more and more people. And once again, as we always say, appreciate those that have already subscribed, and those that engage with us on the channel. We, as I often say, we love that and like to get the feedback and comments, specifically about what you liked, what you didn't like, about whether it be us, the episode, the film we're talking about. We definitely want to hear from you. So make sure that you drop some comments on the video. But Mike, I think that is going to do it for another episode of the Over the Podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, of course, is my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.